I love making TBRs, I'm just not very good at sticking to them. Today I'm going to share with you guys some of the books that I really want to try to get read before the end of the year. I am not one of those people that sets a TBR at the beginning of the year and sticks with it. I have changed a lot in what I want to read since the beginning of the year. In January, I was reading a ton of epic fantasy, thriving in my indie fantasy life, and while I still enjoy these, and there are definitely still a few of those on this TBR, I have definitely fallen down a romantasy rabbit hole in the second half of the year, and I just don't know how to get out of it. So I wanted to kind of revamp the TBR and talk to you guys about what I'm going to be focusing on for July through December-ish. Some of these I already have in videos and I know are going to get read. Others are just ones that I am like dying to get my grubby little hands on. I don't really have any like semblance of order to this, honestly. I just picked a bunch of books that I knew I wanted to read. I did try to like keep in the back of my mind special editions that I wanted to get read, sequels that I really need to get to, especially series that I want to either catch up on or complete, and just books that I'm generally excited about, starts to series that I can't wait to pick up. So that's kind of the structure. It's very loose structure, but we're gonna roll with it. So first up are two special editions that I have that I really want to get read. The first one is the Book of Azrael. You may be thinking, Mel, didn't you already read that? Kind of. I started this book and put it down. I was listening to it. I've heard the audiobook is not the way to go. We were headed to Maine, so we were like flying and stressing about driving and getting places on time. And then there was that going on and I didn't really want to read. And I didn't intentionally DNF this, but it just kind of happened to where by the time I could pick it back up again, it had been too long and I just didn't really want to dive back into it. So I'm going to restart this and hopefully we'll be a little bit more successful in the second time around. This is an urban fantasy romance that has demons and I'm excited to give it another try because so many people adore this series, and it is the July Who Did This To You book club hosted by Tori from Tori Between the Pages, and it's the perfect time to give this another try. Then we have my Fairy Loot Romantasy, and I'm still kind of on the fence about whether or not I'm going to keep this. They have been doing more picks that I'm interested in recently, so I think for now I'm going to keep it, and that is Nectar of the Wicked by Ella Fields. This is one I almost skipped, and I'm so glad I didn't because Erin from Booked and Busy and Tori recently read it. Everyone is screaming, crying, throwing up about this book, and I want to be one of those girlies. This is apparently a super dark, very morally gray, enemies to lovers kind of situation, and I was not getting those vibes from the description of this book or this cover. This cover is like very pretty with beautiful colors, and like this just screams whimsical fairy tale to me. Nope, apparently that's not what's on the inside of this book. So I'm very glad that I kept this, and I'm so excited to read it very, very soon. Okay, here's all my sequels. Listen, we like to set over ambitious TBRs, not stick to ambitious TBRs. Anyway, next up we have actually a fantasy, which is The Last Bond by Brian Stavley. This is the final book in the Unhewn Throne series. This is an epic fantasy following three siblings and what happens after their father dies and they're trying to figure out who's going to sit the Unhewn Throne. I really enjoy this series. The second book was even better than the first for me. I cannot wait to finish this out. This is the final book, so I'm not just going to be catching up. I'm going to be completing a series. And then I don't have this book in my hands yet. I told Cassidy I would give a pinky at least for the final book in the series, and she asked me about a thumb. Pencol, please don't make me give you a thumb. I kind of need those, but I will if I have to. And that is Burn of the Everflame, which is the final book in the Spark of the Everflame or Kindred Curse saga. This is book 1. I obviously don't have Burn in my hands yet, or I wouldn't be offering a thumb for it. This series has me in a chokehold. I love Diem and Luther so much. The way that the third book left off is just like, how are we going to get out of this? How are we all going to survive? I don't know, but I must know. I must know. I think this book is coming out soon-ish. There's a tentative end of July date that I don't really think is accurate. I don't anticipate this book coming out before, I don't know, the latter half of this year, but you bet when it comes out, I will absolutely be getting it. Then we have Fates and Furies by Helen Scher. I really should be holding up Storms and Shadows, so this is another like other situation. I've only read books 1 in the series, but I definitely plan to binge the series throughout the latter half of the year. I already have video plans for books 2 and 3. This is book 3, so I highly anticipate getting to book 4 before the end of the year. This is a mentor-mentee, kind of reluctant allies to lovers situation. I love, love, love the world that Helen Scher has created. Wilder has my whole heart. He's got forearms and man bun, and we know how I feel about that. And I really need to continue this series, so I'm going to be ambitious and put books 2, 3, and 4 on this TBR, and we're just gonna hope for the best. Then I need to complete a very chunky series because I'm going to be starting the spin-off series very soon, and that is Lady of Starfire by Melissa K. Rourke. I have gone through this whole series this year and thoroughly enjoyed it. I need to finish this off and see how Scarlet's story ends. This is an assassin's trope with enemies to lovers. They are all extremely chunky, so they do take a little bit of time to get through. I've been pacing myself with them, but I need to just knock it out, finish the series off, and then I can go into her spin-off series, which is Reign of Shadows and Endings, which I've heard is super dark, morally gray, and set in the same world, and I'm so excited. And then we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I can't believe I haven't read this yet, and it's going to be read very soon, but I did want to throw this on the TBR. This has a Hunger Games type vibe to it, a Red Queen type vibe to it. We have Knife to the Throat, and they are like complete enemies. They are on opposite ends of one another. The banter in these books is just chef's kiss incredible. It is young adult, but I don't care. If the angst is there, the angst is angsting, and I love this series. I just cannot wait to see how it continues, and I've been hearing even better reviews about Reckless than I have Powerless. Next up is going to be completing a duology within a series. A lot of fantasy romances do this, and I absolutely love it, where we have a duology that focuses on one set of characters, and then the series does continue, and the plot thread kind of continues, but then we start following another couple. I really like that because a lot of times I'll find if the series gets too long, even like Lady of Darkness, the romance gets a little stilted because how many times can you have the same conflict and make up over and over and over again? But I still want to know about the plot, and I still want to know what the characters are up to. So that's like my perfect fantasy romance, and I'm going to be continuing and finishing off the duology with Nikolai and Camilla with City of Mirth and Malice. This is a 5-star prediction for me. I loved House of Bane and Blood. It got a solid 4-star for me. I almost gave it a 5. I was like on the cusp of giving it a 5. There were just a couple of things that kept me from giving it a 5, but I'm confident that this is going to be a 5. So this is like a steampunk slash gangster mobster kind of fantasy romance, and the setting is just unlike anything that I've ever read before while still feeling like a fantasy romance, and I absolutely adore the dynamic between these two characters. They are snipey, the banter is excellent, while also having a good relationship too, and that is a really hard dynamic to pull off, and I think that Alex Almenara does it so well. I just cannot wait to see what happens with these two characters. I'm gonna be reading this sooner rather than later because I can't wait. And last but not least, I need to finish out the Kingdom of Lies series with A Queen This Fierce and Deadly by Stasia Stark. These titles, they get me every single time. This is the 4th and final book, and I have really been enjoying binging through this series. I'm a little bit concerned about how the series is going to end because I have not heard the absolute best things about this last book. I know people are still enjoying it, but I am a little cautiously optimistic. This is a fae fantasy romance. I will say that there's something that happens at the end of book 3 that I can understand why some of the reviews might not have been as good, and it makes me, again, cautiously optimistic, but I'm still very excited to give this book a go, to finish out the series, and to see what happens with our characters. The final sets of books that I'm going to talk about is books that I am just very excited to read. These were the ones that I looked at my shelf and went, you, and yep, I'll take you, and there's no semblance of order to this whatsoever. I pulled a couple of like epic fantasies to put on this list. I'm not 100% sure if this will stick. It just depends on what kind of mood I end up through the latter half of the year, but I wanted to give myself some options. The first is Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. I actually will be reading this, I know for a fact, sooner rather than later, because it is my Patreon buddy read for the month of July. So I know that I will be reading this at least in July or early August with my Patrons. This is the same author that did Rune of Kings, which I really enjoyed. There are dragons. We love love good dragons, and so I'm very excited for this book. Do I know anything else about it? No, I just know that it has dragons. Then we have a fantasy romance that I've heard no one talk about, but it sounds so good. There are gods, there are sibling dynamics, two big buzzwords for me, and that's When Gods Fall by S.E. Bouvier. Is that how you say that? I'm really bad with pronunciation of names. But I have never seen anybody talk about this, but I am desperate to read it. It says, when gods fall, two sisters, both destined for greatness, one will rise, one will fall. That absolutely sounds incredible. It is quite chunky, but I don't really care. I cannot wait. I think this is a romantasy book as well. I cannot wait to see how this goes. Another fantasy that we're going to just kind of throw on the list because I'm excited about it right now, hopefully it sticks, and that is Kagan of the Damned by Jonathan Mayberry. I've heard really, really good things about this. This is a horror author actually that wrote a fantasy series, so I'm curious to see how that dynamic plays out. Is it more fantasy? Is it a little grimdark? Does it have some horror elements? I know that this is a revenge story, and that's really all I know about it. Claire really enjoyed this, so I'm hoping that I will too, but I've had it on my shelves for forever, so I need to either get to it or get rid of it. And then one more dragon book that I wanted to throw on an indie fantasy is A Time of Dragons by Philip C. Quantrill. Again, these names, they're getting me, man. I don't know anything about this either. It says the gods are dead. In their absence, there can be only chaos, only war, and they are not all that is fated from the world of Virda. I know that this is like a big expansive world with multiple different series, but you can start at any point, and I think this is one of the prequel series. The sequels are coming out. I love, love, love the covers of these, and I just need to try it. It sounds good. I like indie fantasy. I just need to get out of my romantasy hole and pick some up. Okay, now let's go back to the romantasy, shall we? Next up we have A Crown of Light and Shadows by G.K. DeRosa. I've never heard anybody talk about this book either. I saw it on Amazon. I was like, you sound good, into cart. And this one is about a powerless outcast that is thrust into a brutal Fae academy. Love academies, love school settings, love romantasy. We've just got a great mashup of buzzwords for me in this, and the cover is really pretty, so it definitely caught my eye, I'm not gonna lie. I'm hoping to get to this in August because Battleathon is gonna be in August, and it's got some really good buzzwords for me. And last but not least, we have Road of Bones. This one is definitely going to be read sooner rather than later. It is like a Norse type setting. I'm going to be reading this from Melissa, the Between the Covers book club, I believe, in August with Cassidy, and I'm so excited to give this a try. I've heard incredible things about it, so it definitely needs to go on the TBR. Okay guys, so that is all of my end of the year TBR. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Let me know what books you are excited to get to in the end of the year. What are you focusing on reading? If you're just here to let me know that you were hanging out, leave me a dragon emoji for all of the dragon books, and I will leave up here for you guys some of my other TBRs. As always, links to Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads are down in the description box below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!